On this video, we're gonna talk about a revolutionary concept that will change the way you address selling for good. We're talking about neuromarketing. If you haven't heard about it before, that's completely understandable. It's not in the best interest for companies for this knowledge to go public. Here's the deal. Neuromarketing is a new field that studies consumers' response to marketing stimuli to learn why consumers make the decisions that they do and what part of the brain is telling them to do so. Big brands save thousands of dollars by studying ahead which are the methods that will or won't work based on studying the anatomy of the brain and its relationship with decision making. Everything we perceive and everything we do originates in the brain. So our perceptions and actions are basically electrical impulses between neurons. Many group experiments were conducted in order to find out which exactly were the parts of the brain that triggered whenever a customer had to make a purchase decision. What they found was amazing. What you're about to see now is based on the work of Patrick Renvoise and his discoveries and achievements in the field of neuromarketing. Within your skull, you can find one of the most evolved objects in the known universe, the human brain. This is your brain. It's a small organ of about 1500 cubic centimeters and 6 kilograms and contains over 100 billion living cells and 1 million kilometers of interconnected fiber. What most of us already know is that the brain is divided in two sides or hemispheres. We have the left brain and we have the right brain. The left brain, also identified as the male brain, is in charge of things such as logic, language, math, and linear thinking. The right brain, or female brain, is responsible for things such as creativity, music, and arts. But that's not where we're heading here. Like our species, the brain hasn't always been this way. It has evolved a long way to be what it is nowadays. There was a time when our brain was primitive. It didn't understand language and was unable to process emotions. With time, the brain began to evolve. This evolution was guided by our survival instinct. We developed the need to communicate with each other, and that's why the brain started changing and adapting in order to be able to process language. It took thousands and maybe even millions of years for our brain to be what it is nowadays. And guess what? It still is changing. And it's possible that the barrier of evolution is non-existent. The brain will always keep evolving. Nowadays, we have all the tools and equipment that we need in order to be able to understand how our brain processes information, how it responds to the environment, and how it actually does the communication between the cells of the brain through nothing more than electrical impulses. Nowadays, we know that the brain is not just divided in left and right hemisphere. It also has concentric subdivisions that have been developing according to our needs as organisms. We now know that the brain has three main divisions: the new brain, the middle brain, and the old brain. The new brain is the one that thinks. It is in charge of processing all of the rational data that we gather from our environment, and it actually was the last part of the brain to develop. Then we have the middle brain. The middle brain is the one that feels. It processes emotions and gut feelings, something we once weren't able to do before. We then have the old brain. The old brain was the first part of the brain that developed in the human species. And believe it or not, it is actually the part of the brain that handles all decision making. It takes into consideration the input from the other two brains, but the old brain is the actual trigger of decision. Let's take a look at a simplified version of a brain. This is the actual image that you need to remember in order to understand how we process data to make decisions. The new brain communicates with the middle brain. The middle brain then gathers out all of this information, gives it an emotional meaning or symbolism, and then puts it in a way that the old brain, our primitive brain, can actually understand. This is how the brain works. On the book Emotional Brain, it is pointed out that the amygdala, located in the old brain, has a greater influence on the cortex than the cortex has on the amygdala, then allowing emotional arousal to dominate and control thinking. Did you know that words have been being used for about only 40,000 years? Meanwhile, written communication has existed for only 10,000, but the old brain appeared nearly 450 million years ago. If the old brain is actually the one that makes the decisions, how can you possibly sell something to a brain that's 450 million years old? What I will teach you is how you can communicate in a way that the old brain actually understands. I will teach you how you can speak and present yourself and your products in order for your customer's old brain to be triggered into making a purchase decision.